Hi all, I'm Under Tallett. I'm the founder of DigitalRadius. DigitalRadius is a Smartsheet Gold Partner. And I'm here today to answer a really interesting question, kind of a fun question. Can you run your entire company on Smartsheet? So my son loves these YouTube videos where they go in and they talk about, what would happen if a great white shark got in a fight with, a saber-toothed tiger? And it's always these big hypotheticals. And it got me thinking, we do a ton of work in the Smartsheet ecosystem. And what we're interested in is, hey, how much can we solve with Smartsheet? And I actually got asked today, this is a lot of what prompted it. I got asked today, how come you guys are a Smartsheet partner? Isn't that just a project management tool? And the answer is no, it's a lot more than a project management tool. There's a lot of different things that Smartsheet does, that Smartsheet's incredibly powerful as an ecosystem solution that solves problems across different pieces of the enterprise. And then the question really becomes, well, how far can you take it? Can you take it so that you run your entire company on Smartsheet? Hey, I'm going to buy one license, one software license. Man, wouldn't that be nice? Save a lot of capital if we could only do that. And I do think this is a good topic for today. This is a good topic for 2023. Could I save significant amounts of capital by using Smartsheet as the mid-market solution for all of these SMB, small and medium business software tools out there? And can it effectively replace a lot of them? So let's dive into it. Part one, project management and collaboration. This is pretty straightforward, right? I mean, Smartsheet is known as a PM solution. It kind of is number one in the market here. We deploy this all the time. We deploy project management constantly. We've got a solution for life sciences. We've got a solution for construction, solution for lots of other industries. There's a lot here that I think this is pretty straightforward. You can do your Gantt charts, you can manage your projects, you got your timelines, your spend, your budget, you can integrate it, you can tie it in and out of your ERP system. I think most companies would accept, Smartsheet is probably the leading tool in this space. And I don't think there's a lot of challenge here to the conversation of, can Smartsheet run my PMO team? I mean, I've done it here. I actually deployed it for Moderna. I ran enterprise systems for Moderna for 6 years. I deployed it at Moderna in 2018, the Smartsheet with the sort of integration of Smartsheet into the clinical team and the deploying of Smartsheet's overall project and portfolio management solution. And it's really a great tool. I think that this one is we can do the Mythbusters thing. And we say, check, this one works. We can do that. Workflow automation. I think Smartsheet knocks it out of the park. And this is actually where it starts to become a little bit more than a project management tool and a little bit more than a spreadsheet or Microsoft Project alternative. This is not just an Excel alternative. And by workflow, I mean all those times that you need to say, hey, I need to do something. And then when I do something, it needs to go to somebody else and they need to do something, or they need to approve it, or they need to move it on to the next person. Does Smartsheet work in that space? The answer is yes. We build a lot of tools for clients where we come in and say, okay, what's the workflow that we need to solve for? We need to request something, we need to approve it, and it needs to go somewhere, or it needs to become a report or analytics. Smartsheet is great at this, and we'll get into some specific use cases, but big picture, I think, yes, we can do workflow and automation, happily go into some demos here where we can talk about this. What about sort of communication, document management? I think in both of those areas, I would say yes, but it's probably not the best tool. And these are pretty low cost alternatives. Communication, I really like Smartsheet's new feature where it highlights the most recent comment on a row. That's awesome. So that when we're working in Smartsheet and somebody puts in a comment, we always go and can see the most recent one. Super useful little hack that they added to the Smartsheet ecosystem or Smartsheet solutions, I think just last year. Great little tool, but still compared to Slack, Teams, email, this isn't going to be your primary communication method. Could you use it for that? I think I'll give it a check, but definitely a little on the fence on this one. Document management, somewhat similar. Could you create sort of complex document management in Smartsheet where you've got rows and rows and rows, and each one's a document, and you've got the documents attached, and that's how you manage your documents? Yes, you definitely could do that, but probably easier and not much more expensive or very low cost to use Dropbox, Box, OneDrive, Google Drive, etc. Use a folder structure and share that way, or to use a network attached drive and manage files and folders in the traditional sense. I do really like the fact that in Smartsheet you can attach documents, and we'll see that in other workflow areas. Yeah, I think that this is actually a huge capability. All right, so let's talk. All right, we've got project and portfolio management. We've got workflow. We've got document management. We've got some type of communication. Could I run my whole company on it from a communication standpoint? No, but we've all got email. All right, so we don't need to buy any additional software here. Let's talk about something a little bit harder. CRM. Could we run CRM just in Smartsheet? I think the answer here is yes. It's not going to do everything Salesforce can do. I don't think we're talking sort of feature parity there, but certainly we could track customers. We could see what their most recent communications. We could track information about the customers. We could do a customer master data sort of database architecture in Smartsheet. We've done that before. DigitalRadius, we've done that for clients. You can do nagging reminders. You can do updates. You can do rows or columns. You can update in different ways. Lots of ways that we could really get at building this out as a full force CRM. And then with Work Apps Dynamic View, we could build a user interface on top of this for data entry, et cetera, even out in the field with the Smartsheet app. So I think there's a lot of ways we could get there. Is it going to have a dialer integration? Is it going to do sort of a lot of what Smartsheet can do for your sales team? Probably not. Are you going to be able to take in a sales order? Yes, you could do this. You could build out a customer portal. You could do that all through Smartsheet. You can take in a sales order. You could integrate with an existing customer portal through an API. You can integrate Smartsheet into your ERP system to take in that order. So I think there's actually a lot here that we could do to get pretty close to feature parity with CRM. All right, so that's a big one, right? There's the CRM is one of the sort of the big gravity wells in the big enterprise software world. Salesforce being the granddaddy of them all, and I do actually think that for most companies, we could get very close to feature parity on CRM using Smartsheet. So what's next? All right, we said ERP. Enterprise resource planning. I do a ton of ERP work. I've been an SAP advisor for years. I love SAP S/4HANA. It's a great platform. I've worked with a lot of other ERP tools. We're a NetSuite partner. We do a lot of work in the ERP ecosystem. Can Smartsheet be your ERP? Not really, but pretty close. And let me explain why. Smartsheet isn't a core accounting system. It's not going to run your general ledger, your GL. And so we've looked at this and done a lot of work actually with some of our Smartsheet team leads who are incredible at the product. The question is, can you really do most of your ERP work in Smartsheet and then do your core accounting in an accounting platform? The answer is yes. Could I use NetSuite, QuickBooks, anything else that I wanted as my general ledger and that kind of core accounting system of record, but use Smartsheet to do inventory, all of the planning, all of the management of what I'm trying to do in ERP? Yes. And this includes product management, includes vendor management. And I'll really come back to this, but we've got a fully built out vendor management solution with vendor request and approval, supplier collaboration. We've got a procurement solution. I'll come to procure to pay, tie that into ERP. So can you do your payments out of it for accounts payable? No, I would still recommend using something else. Again, NetSuite, maybe hooked up to a bill.com or hooked up to some other payment solution, Coupa Pay, for example. Huge fan of Coupa as a platform. So there are lots of ways you could do this. But for a lot of companies, you could actually get pretty far. And let me explain. You could do inventory. You can do inventory planning and do cycle counts. You can do an MRP run, a manufacturing resource planning run, where you've got your requirements. You can do a supply chain where you can look forward and say, hey, what's my forecast for demand and my S&OP cycle? And then once I've got that demand forecast, I can plug that into my Smartsheet tool and I can say, all right, or I could build that in Smartsheet and then plug it into the supply chain side of Smartsheet and say, all right, what am I going to need to order when? What are my long lead time items? How do I place those orders? And then let's come to procure to pay. So on the procure to pay side, we've got a fully built procurement solution. Okay, so now I can do my procurement here in Smartsheet. This is all pretty cool stuff. I've made it pretty far down the chain. I've now got ERP, I've got procurement, I can buy things, I've got my projects tied in, I've got project codes. So I've made it a long way through this to try to figure out, okay, can I run my company on Smartsheet? I've made it through finance, I've made it through supply chain, we've done project management, PMO. So what's next? We talked CRM, what's next? HR. So you've got a lot of workers who work for you and you need to keep track of them and you need to know how they're doing. And you really need to do quite a number of other things around onboarding, offboarding, workers, system of record, managing their core data. You need to do time, you need to do time entry, time and attendance. You need analytics. You need recognition, engagement, and overall sort of performance management. Almost all of that you can do in Smartsheet. For example, we've got a fully built out performance management solution that is really feature parity with the best SaaS tools out there, the big software providers. You can build that directly in Smartsheet. Again, even from user interface, user experience, Smartsheet with work apps, you can make it look like a full custom web app that your workers are going to enjoy engaging with it and really be able to quickly and easily engage with the platform. So where are the gaps? Well, I actually think the only gap here is payroll and benefits. Everything else, performance management, onboarding, offboarding, in particular, onboarding, offboarding, again, we've got a fully built out solution. I actually think that's better in Smartsheet than it is in any HRIS tool. And I've done Workday, SuccessFactors, UKG, namely Bamboo, all of them. I've never seen an HRIS system that can truly do onboarding, offboarding in integrated fashion. And I mean that is integration in and out of all the other departments that are part of the onboarding, offboarding process. Finance, facilities, HR, but then IT for their laptop and security and network access, et cetera. Most of the HR tools really just focus on payroll. Like, how do I onboard somebody and get them into the payroll system and get them into my HR system? And they often forget that a lot of people who work for your company aren't employees. They're service providers, they're consultants, they're contractors. Most HR systems forget that worker population. So interesting here. I think you can actually do better than most HR tools. And we've got a product, Core HCM, that is effectively all of these things combined. And you can also part it out and do just performance management or just onboarding, offboarding. So I think you can do all of these HR tools in Smartsheet. What can't you do? I don't think you can do payroll. I don't think you could actually run your payroll platform on Smartsheet. Maybe in sort of a paper-based way, I wouldn't suggest it. Easy to hook it up to ADP Workforce Now or a number of other payroll solutions, Gusto, et cetera, that you could do to run payroll in this environment. So, okay, I think you can do most of HR. We're going to get payroll and X, but everything else gets a check. And so right now, the only things we're gapped on are your core accounting, which you need something for, ERP, QuickBooks, NetSuite, and your payroll, so you need something like ADP. But other than that, I haven't really found a gap yet, and I want to keep going. So what's next? Okay, you've got a lot of data. It moves around your company. Some of this we can talk about in a generic way. How do I move data between different systems? This is generally called an integration platform as a service, or iPaaS. The most popular are MuleSoft, Boomi, Work2, Snap, quite a few others. We are a Boomi partner. I'm a huge fan of the Boomi platform. I ran and implemented the world's most complex Boomi deployment at Moderna. I think it's a great tool. Interesting question, though. Again, could I do all of this in Smartsheet? Mostly, unless you're running real-time data analytics, right? Unless you're running something, let's talk about, fintech, you're running in some kind of finance environment where you're doing market data and making trades. No, you're not going to do that in that kind of absolute microsecond type integration. Same thing goes for running Amazon, and you're trying to get orders placed within, again, micro or milliseconds. That's not going to happen in Smartsheet. But let's talk about what most companies actually do. What most companies actually do is they have things that flow largely through a few integrations and a lot of manual processes, a lot of manually moving data from one thing, like an order management system, into something else, like ERP. That generally goes pretty slowly. Even if it needs to go relatively quickly, 15 minutes, something like that, we can do that in Smartsheet. You can use Data Bridge, Data Mesh, Data Shuttle. We can build this out so that you can have your data move between different tools pretty rapidly in Smartsheet. And more than that, let's say that we're already running everything in Smartsheet. We can use Smartsheet as the bridge between Smartsheet to Smartsheet. Of course we can. Or we can use Smartsheet as the bridge between two other apps. I can integrate Workday to ServiceNow using Smartsheet. Absolutely. So a lot of interesting ways here that we could use Smartsheet to move data around the company. We can also use Smartsheet as what would be called a master data hub, or effectively the system of record for an individual object. Let's take worker as an example. Everybody has lots of workers, and they would say, my HR system is a system of record. Not true. Your HR system has a lot of data about your workers, but there's a lot of other data about your workers as well that your HR system doesn't know about or doesn't care about. For example, in a lot of companies, the HR system doesn't have the location, or it doesn't have your contractors or consultants or service providers in the HR system. There's quite a bit of other data that exists about workers that you don't have in your HR system. You can have it in Smartsheet. Smartsheet's actually a great place to put this. So you can build out a full master data hub for worker, vendor, customer, financial dimensions, all in Smartsheet so that other systems pull on that data, and you've got a many-to-one relationship. Central place, single source of record, integrations in and out of those other systems. All right, this is pretty far along. Right now, we've got most of our company running on Smartsheet. We've got CRM, we've got finance, we've got, IT. Let's talk IT. Interestingly, IT traditionally hasn't been a big fan of Smartsheet. Smartsheet was sold into functional departments, and really IT was brought along for the ride. It was, okay, well then I guess Smartsheet's just going to have to accept the fact that finance, HR, facilities, project management, et cetera, are using Smartsheet. Today, that's really different. Smartsheet is an integrated part of an IT landscape. You can do full role-based access controls. You can do full identity and access management. You can really turn Smartsheet into IT's best friend. I've got another video on that. Please check it out on my channel. Really cool information about, yes, Smartsheet should be part of your IT landscape and help IT turn into a business partner that solves problems for the business. Tackles that long backlog of needs. So how can you actually use Smartsheet to run IT? This is ITSM, IT Service Management, or ITOM, IT Operations Management. The leader in the space is ServiceNow. I've done tons of ServiceNow deployments. I'm a huge fan of the product. It's incredibly expensive and appropriate for large companies. So let's talk, how could I run my company and my smaller business or my medium-sized business? I don't want to spend the money for ServiceNow on Smartsheet. Absolutely. Smartsheet's got a ticketing engine, it's got a workflow engine, it's got everything you need to build out an ITSM. And we've done it. We've got a product, Core ITSM. It's a fully built ITSM solution built on Smartsheet, can be deployed to your company in a matter of weeks, and you get most of the capabilities that you'd want out of a ServiceNow or similar at a fraction of the cost, especially if you start adding up all these different apps. Okay, so what's the last thing then? I've got IT, I've got HR, I've got finance, I've got sales and CRM, I've got document management, I've got communication, collaboration, workflow management, project management. I think the last thing here to talk about is reporting and analytics. Is it a BI solution, a business intelligence solution? No, but it gets pretty darn close. It's got the capabilities of Excel, something along those lines. You can do a lot of slicing and dicing and reporting against data. Can you do real deep analytics where you're really questioning and querying against the data, building hypotheses and testing them with a sort of full BI platform? No, but you've got a very easy integration into other BI solutions. Power BI in particular, that's a native integration. We use it all the time. And then also you can do integrations into basically any other BI tool that you want by exporting to something like a relational database and then querying against that data. So it's actually really easy to go from Smartsheet, structured data capture, structured data management, into analytics. Smartsheet itself can do quite a lot of the analytics that you need, really most of what most businesses need. So I'm going to give it a check here because I actually think the vast majority of companies could run entirely on Smartsheet for analytics. And then as you get bigger, would you then want to do enterprise data warehousing and analytics and sort of deeper dive into your data? Yeah, absolutely. But probably not as a small to medium business or as a growth co. You're looking at this and saying, hey, I think I'm going to get enough out of Smartsheet, at least for quite a while. And that way, I think you could run your business entirely on Smartsheet from a reporting and analytics perspective. All right, going to add it all up now. I think that covers really all the core areas in enterprise systems. And there's really just two gaps. You can't run your payroll and your benefits, and you wouldn't do your core accounting, your core general ledger. So with those two gaps, we've narrowed it down from needing 40, 50 applications to 1 plus 2 backups with the ERP system and the payroll platform. And that way, payroll often you don't actually even pay for the platform, you're paying for the service of payroll. And ERP is probably relatively low cost in this scenario because it's purely the GL. Everything else is being run in Smartsheet, including all of your manufacturing or your cost of goods, everything else that you need to do in terms of complex enterprise resource planning is really happening in Smartsheet, supply chain, et cetera. Now we've got the vast majority of the company running on Smartsheet. What's my license going to cost me? This is where Smartsheet is so much better. And this is what is a huge differentiator for Smartsheet. And one of the reasons I want to do this video, Smartsheet charges you per license per user and for the capabilities on the platform, not for the apps. So if you want to own 30, 40, 50 apps on Smartsheet or build 30, 40, 50 apps on Smartsheet, it doesn't cost you any more than owning one. That is a huge differentiator for Smartsheet. And I think incredibly relevant to the conversation in 2023 when IT budgets are stretched thin, company budgets are stretched thin. Can I run my whole company on Smartsheet? Basically, yes. And it would save a lot. It would save a lot of capital. And I believe you could reach feature parity pretty quickly. If not out of the box, you can look at a lot of our below, check out a lot of the products that we've already built. you could reach feature parity with mid-market SaaS solutions effectively out of the box with Smartsheet. Pretty cool stuff. So if you're interested in more, please subscribe or reach out. I'm super interested in these conversations, super interested in talking Smartsheet. Thank you all so much, and goodbye.